In a courtroom built on the promise of justice, one woman stood alone. Her name was Maya Carter, a maid, a mother. A voice the world tried to silence. But what happened in the next 47 minutes would shatter a judge's arrogance, unravel a billionaire's empire, and force a nation to face its own reflection. How could one woman, dismissed as invisible, bring a titan to his knees? Maya Carter wasn't born to fight battles in marble halls. For 17 years, she scrubbed floors, folded linens, and served in the shadows of wealth. Invisible. That's what they called her. Invisible to the world, invisible to the law, invisible to the man who mocked her from the bench. But truth? Truth is a blade, sharp and unyielding, and Maya held it tightly in her hands. She wasn't just a maid cleaning the homes of the elite, she was a keeper of secrets, a witness to the underbelly of power. Every day, she moved through the grand estates of men like Richard Carver, a billionaire whose name was synonymous with untouchable influence. His empire stretched across continents, built on deals forged in boardrooms and backrooms, where the powerless were nothing more than collateral damage. Maya, with her worn hands and quiet demeanor, was supposed to be one of them, unseen, unheard, unimportant. But the truth doesn't care about status. It doesn't bend to wealth. And Maya Carter was about to prove that. 12 hours before she stood in that courtroom, Maya was just another face in the city's endless rhythm. Her life was a cycle of early mornings and late nights, cleaning the opulent homes of those who never looked her in the eye. But something had shifted in her world. A single moment, a single discovery had set her on a collision course with destiny. It began in Carver's mansion, where she'd worked for over a decade. She'd always been meticulous, her hands moving with precision over marble countertops and crystal chandeliers. But that day, in the quiet of his study, she found something that wasn't meant for her eyes. A folder, tucked away in a drawer, its edges frayed but its contents pristine. A ledger, a record of transactions that didn't belong in any legitimate business. Numbers that told a story of corruption, of exploitation, of lives ruined to pad the coffers of an empire. And at the bottom of the page, a signature, Richard Carver's, bold and unmistakable. What was in that folder? A secret so explosive it could topple an empire. But to reveal it, Maya would have to face a system stacked against her. A system where wealth buys silence and justice is a battle fought uphill. She could have stayed silent. She could have remained invisible, slipping back into the shadows where the world expected her to stay. Most would have. The risk was unimaginable. Her job, her safety, her family's future all hanging in the balance. But Maya wasn't most people. She was a mother who'd taught her daughter to stand tall, a woman who'd survived a world that tried to crush her spirit. And in that moment, holding that ledger, she made a choice. She chose to wield the truth like a weapon, to step out of the shadows and into a fight she wasn't supposed to win. The man who stood in her way was no ordinary adversary. Judge Harold Grayson was a pillar of the legal system, a man whose gavel had shaped the fates of countless lives. To the public, he was a symbol of order, a guardian of fairness. But behind the robe, he was something else, a gatekeeper for the powerful, a skeptic of the powerless. To him, Maya Carter was nothing more than a maid, her testimony a nuisance to be dismissed. He didn't see her as a threat. He didn't see her at all. Invisible, that's what they called her. Invisible as she dusted their shelves, invisible as she overheard their schemes. But Maya saw everything. She saw the deals made in darkness, the numbers that didn't add up, the lives discarded like yesterday's trash. And when she found that ledger, stamped with Carver's signature, buried in a drawer no one thought she'd touch, she knew the truth wasn't invisible. It was a fire waiting to ignite. The night before the trial, Maya sat in her modest apartment, the ledger spread out before her on a kitchen table scarred by years of use. Her daughter, Lena, watched from across the room, her eyes wide with a mix of pride and fear. Maya had spent weeks preparing, meeting with a young lawyer named Sarah Ellis, who believed in her when no one else would. Sarah was barely out of law school, her office a cramped corner of a community legal aid center. But her passion for justice burned bright. Together, they'd built a case, piece by painstaking piece, knowing the odds were against them. Carver's legal team was a machine, high-priced attorneys who'd never lost a case, backed by a billionaire's bottomless resources. But Maya had something they didn't, the truth, raw and unfiltered, ready to cut through the lies. The courtroom was a battleground, and Maya was walking into it alone. She'd faced prejudice before, whispers about her place, her worth, her very existence. But nothing prepared her for the weight of Judge Grayson's words. "You're just a maid," he said, his voice dripping with disdain, the words echoing through the packed gallery like a slap. The billionaire smirked from the defendant's table, his confidence unshaken. The gallery gasped, some in shock, others in agreement. They thought they knew the story. They thought they'd won before the fight began. But the truth has a way of defying expectations. Maya wasn't just a maid. She was a reckoning, a force that refused to be silenced. And the audience, you and I, we know something they didn't. We know the fire in her heart, the weight of the ledger in her hands, the courage it took to stand there and face a system that had dismissed her for decades. Maya's testimony began slowly, her voice steady but soft, as if she were testing the air. She spoke of her years in Carver's mansion, the countless hours spent in the background, unnoticed but always observing. She described the day she found the ledger, the moment her hands brushed against its cover, the chill that ran through her as she realized what it contained. Illegal transactions, hidden accounts, workers exploited, their wages siphoned off to fund Carver's lavish lifestyle. She spoke of the fear that gripped her when she copied the pages, her heart pounding as she slipped the folder into her bag. She spoke of the nights spent wrestling with her decision, knowing that speaking out could destroy her life but staying silent would destroy her soul. With every word, the courtroom shifted. The gallery leaned forward, their murmurs fading into silence. Carver's smirk faltered, his fingers drumming nervously on the table. Judge Grayson's expression hardened, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Maya's voice grew stronger, her words painting a vivid picture of a man who believed himself untouchable. She described the ledger in precise detail, citing dates and figures that matched federal regulations, evidence admissible under Rule 8036, the business records exception. Her lawyer, Sarah, had coached her well, but this wasn't rehearsed. This was raw, unfiltered truth, delivered with the weight of 17 years of being unseen. The truth wasn't just a blade now, it was a storm. Maya's testimony laid bare the machinery of Carver's empire, how he'd manipulated contracts, evaded taxes, and exploited vulnerable workers to amass his fortune. The ledger was a map of his crimes, each entry a life he deemed expendable. And Maya, the woman they'd called invisible, was the one who'd found it. She was the one who'd carried it into the light. The courtroom exploded into chaos. Carver's lawyers leapt to their feet, shouting objections, their voices drowned out by the weight of the evidence. The gallery erupted, some cheering, others whispering in disbelief. Judge Grayson banged his gavel, his face pale, his authority shaken. The truth was no longer a whisper. It was a roar, and it was coming for everyone in that room. What would you do if you held the truth in your hands? Would you stay silent, safe in the shadows, or would you step into the light, knowing the world might turn against you? Maya Carter chose the light. She stood there, her hands no longer trembling, her voice no longer soft. She spoke for the workers whose lives had been stolen, for the families who'd been crushed under Carver's greed. She spoke for herself, for the years she'd been called invisible, for the daughter watching her from the gallery, learning what it means to fight. And in that moment, she wasn't just a maid. She was a force of nature, a beacon of courage in a world that thrives on silence. The climax came swiftly, like a crescendo after a long, slow burn. Sarah Ellis presented the ledger, its pages projected for all to see. Each entry was a wound, each signature a confession. Carver's lawyers tried to discredit Maya, painting her as a disgruntled employee, a liar seeking revenge. But the evidence was undeniable, backed by timestamps, bank records, and whistleblower accounts that Sarah had uncovered. The judge, once so quick to dismiss Maya, sat in stunned silence. His earlier words, "You're just a maid," hung in the air like a ghost, haunting him as the truth unfolded. The gallery held its breath, the tension palpable, as the reality of Carver's crimes sank in. In the end, the truth cut through like a blade. Judge Grayson issued a public apology, his voice strained, his career forever tarnished by his own arrogance. Richard Carver faced federal investigations, his empire crumbling under the weight of his own greed. His wealth, once a shield, was no match for the courage of one woman. Maya Carter, once invisible, became a symbol, a reminder that justice isn't a gift bestowed by the powerful. It's a battle fought by those brave enough to demand it. The verdict came down like a thunderclap. Guilty. Carver's empire was ordered to pay millions in restitution to the workers he'd exploited, and criminal charges loomed on the horizon. But this story isn't just about a courtroom or a ledger, it's about what happens when the invisible demand to be seen. Maya Carter didn't just win a case, she changed the narrative. She showed the world that no one is too small to make a difference, that no voice is too quiet to be heard. She walked out of that courtroom with her head held high, her daughter at her side, the weight of 17 years lifting from her shoulders. The crowd outside cheered, their voices a chorus of hope, a testament to the power of one woman's courage. This is more than a story, it's a call to action. The invisible are watching. The truth is waiting. And the fight for justice never ends. Maya Carter proved that one voice, one choice, can ignite a fire that burns through corruption and lights the way for others. She wasn't just a maid, she was a mother, a warrior, a beacon of hope in a world that too often looks away. So ask yourself, what truth are you holding? What battle are you ready to fight? Because the next reckoning might start with you.